Moving right along.
You ready to get started?
I am. I'm just looking at that.
This ginormous presentation?
It was a long night last night. I mean, not really, because the meeting started at 6, so we were home 7:30.
It wasn't bad.
Wasn't
All right.
bad.
So this is, episode 3?
3.
Of Mundelein Minute, and it is April 20th. We're sitting down to discuss Finance Committee meeting. We just finished recording episode 2, which is talking about Thornton's. But you may not have heard that, so I'm just going to throw in a few of our little disclaimers that we throw into probably now all of our episodes. The crazy noise in the background is
It's two cats
fighting. They like to run around the house and fight, so that's happening. There's 3 cats total. There's also a bird and some kids and a
3
wife
kids
upstairs.
and a wife. There's a lot going on in the Schwenk household.
Right. Squeaky floors. So,
Sorry if it bothers you.
that's why we have microphones close to us. But
These cats are like going at it right now.
Still hear these cats playing. I'm going to have to get some video to add into this.
Seriously, because they are like...
Yeah,
Get
that's
'em.
crazy.
Get them.
Anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the 2022, fiscal year 2022.
Wasn't that weird hearing that out loud? 2022.
Yeah.
Oh.
But you know what was actually nice to hear? That we're ending the year with a surplus.
Hey!
For the first time in 8 years.
That was a good thing to say.
A good thing.
Ray Semple said something last night, and he was like, it's a good way to go out.
Right.
With a budget surplus. And
With a budget surplus. $1 million budget surplus that we're putting back into our reserve, which has been kind of drawn down the last few years. And we'll get into that in a little bit.
Full disclosure, Trustee Schwenk chairs this committee, so he's probably going to do a lot of the talking, and I'm just going to go...
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go slide for slide through, let's see, I think there was 60 slides. There's 39 pages in this packet. I'm just going to highlight some of the important parts of the budget. There's definitely a lot of good things that we moved forward last year, keeping businesses moving during the pandemic. The Park Street closure was big. The fiscal year surplus was huge. The construction of the Public Works and Engineering facility was huge. There was a lot of good that came out of this last year, even though it was a pretty dark year.
Yeah, really dark year. Yeah.
Yeah. We also hired a new village administrator, which changed our entire budgeting presentation last night. And then we also talked about a new system that'll be coming to the village.
I'm so pumped for that.
For the ERP system, which is going to change the entire budgeting process again.
But not only that, it changes budgeting process, but it also changes like a lot of interface we do with the public. And I think it just...
And huge transparency.
It's going to go so far. So it's cool.
So we set out this last year to create a new comprehensive plan. And that plan is published. It's on the village website. I will put a link either above or below the video, depending on what platform you're watching this on. I don't know. It'll be around. And we'll link to that document, as well as this entire presentation is on the village's website as well. So we ended the year, like we said, let me find this slide, with $1 million surplus. And a lot of that was thanks to the federal government and part of the COVID relief.
The American Rescue Plan.
The American Rescue Plan. We got 1.2, 1.3 million in additional funds. And we're slated to get 1.9 million in additional funds in the next fiscal year. We took that into consideration, but it's not in our budgeting numbers.
Because we don't have the money in hand, right? Like, I felt like that was so smart to not...
We're not relying upon money that we are told we're going to get from the federal government, but that we don't actually have in place.
So I'm saying like counting your chickens before they hatch.
Correct. Yes, exactly. So the fiscal year budget, we are ending right about $27 million, and we are budgeting $28.8 for the next year. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry. That's the fiscal year projected end.
Hold on. We're ending the year of 2021 at 28.8. We're going to start next year at roughly the same.
Correct. 28 million.
Yes.
There we go. I was on the wrong page. So we are projecting just under our last year's budget. The numbers are a little, I don't want to say skewed, because they're not skewed, but they're there's some money, like we said, the additional money from the federal government in the grants section that shows, makes our number for this fiscal year a little bit larger than previous years.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Fair.
And then we also are looking at the next fiscal year of $28 million, but we don't have that money included. So some items that we are looking at, I should also just point out, let me go back a page. There is a slide. Is it one?
Oh yeah, this was a good slide. Are you going to talk about the personnel slide?
The personnel slide.
Yeah, so there's a slide in this presentation, which obviously we can link to this presentation.
Sure.
But there's a slide in it that shows costs by department, right? And it breaks them out. And basically the majority of our costs are within what Eric Gunther calls the big three: police, fire, public works. But within those, and within all of our departments, 70% of our costs are associated with personnel. So that's like pretty telling, right? I thought that was
Correct.
super interesting.
Correct. So moving on to the budget, we looked at some of the cost savings. We talked about in our first episode the early retirements, and the early retirements are saving $225,000 in this next fiscal year. 3-year savings of $500,000, and 5 years out, we're looking at close to $1 million in savings for the employees that took the early retirement program.
And I think Eric pointed out Eric Gunther pointed out that most of those were just kind of middle management, middle supervisor roles that chose to retire, and they probably won't be backfilled unless there's a need. So, the plan is with these people retiring that we're not going to see a service level decrease or anything like that. So
correct. So our overall total budget for the next year, including capital improvements, we went from $63.6 million last year to $57.5 million this year. And the corporate budget, the corporate fund did increase by $1 million, and other funds are down. Water and sewer mainly is the large one that's down.
Why?
And that is simply the Western Slopes subdivision drainage project,
which should be wrapping up.
And those funds are being paid out this year. Well, some of them I believe will be. We paid out majority of them last year.
Yeah. And
that will wrap up that project. But because we budgeted so much for that last year, that number was much higher. So some items that are not in the budget, I think, are huge. So we have been looking at a number of items for the last
some of these items have been a long time. Like this police station parking lot expansion, that's been going on for 15, 16 years.
Correct.
This is more like a wish list of what we would do if we had 100% funding, I think, for all of them.
Right.
And slowly but surely, I think we'll eventually chip away at what we need done, but that's just an opinion.
So some items that didn't make it: LED streetlights, lakefront park, so the park that's off of Allenson and 45.
We'll talk more about that later. I want to address that a little bit, but
so that's it's not necessarily the full build out of the park. It is
shoreline restoration, some landscaping that's going to add trees there.
Right.
Basically just upkeep and maintenance of that, because right now I know that when people drive by, and of course those residents that live on Diamond Lake know what's going on, but to me this is important and this is jumping ahead, I'm sorry, I'm stealing your thunder, but this is important to me because I think that we need to make sure that we protect our investment and then protect the lake over there, and I think we will do it. It's just not in the budget right now, which that can fluctuate and change as priorities.
We'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Okay. Anyways,
but there's also one other part is there was a buffer for some of those residents with those other buildings there.
Yeah.
And when that buffer came down, they started to have more noise and more views into their home.
And light.
Yeah.
What's it called? Light pollution.
Light pollution.
Yeah.
So that's part of the landscaping, is to protect and shield some of that noise, some of that lighting, and the view that was taken down. So what's in the budget? Some new things this year. We have increased the amount of money going into the street program. The big program, which helps businesses throughout town with various expansions.
Yeah, there's a slide on here that talks about the big program. So we're allocating $125,000, but I think in that investment over the past few years, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, but we've invested 200 and change or something, and it's spurred development of over 2 million or something crazy. Like, so
Right.
the ROI is vast, is what I'm getting at, like, without nailing the numbers correct. But
Right, because we only put in 50% funding up to, I want to say, a $5,000 amount.
yeah,
So if the project is 10,000, the business is putting in 7,500 of that money, and that's still additional money that's going to development within the village.
yeah. I like this program. I think it's good.
It is a good program, and we increased that funding from 75,000 in the last fiscal year to $50,000 more to $125,000 total. So we're completing the Western Slope subdivision and starting the pedestrian bridge overpass. And then the big one this year is the ERP system, which is very exciting. And this is something that came out of our strategic plan as
Sorry, there's a cat over here.
there's a cat over here, and I hear our kids, not our kids, but
Not
their
our kids. No,
Or I was going to say our elephants upstairs, because that's what it sounds like when they're jumping on these floors. So the ERP system is a cloud-based computer system that ties in several of the village's outdated systems. So we're technically not tying them in. We're moving all of the data from 4Gov and CityView, which have been used for just various behind the scenes.
Do you see the dates when we implemented these?
Yeah, so 4Gov was in the early 90s and CityView was in 2006, and this software isn't even being updated anymore.
Yeah.
It's not being supported, and it's time to move to something much better.
They're not like mobile friendly. They can't accept online payments. I mean, the need for this to change was hugely there. I think this is going to be a huge uptick for the residents. It's good.
So there's a decent size, a large number that goes along with the implementation cost, the first year cost, when you're moving that much data, the historical data. So it's not like there's a hard date where it's like, okay, anything new goes here and anything old we finish out here. We're moving everything over to these new systems, which helps for transparency when looking for past documents, for budgeting.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into that, and it's great that data is moving over. So while the full recommendation and report hasn't been brought to the trustees, they kind of gave us a preview last night that they're looking at that they're going to be asking, and that they're looking at OpenGov as the vendor to utilize to move to the ERP program. And it's going to be, it says $266,300 for the first year cost, and then an annual ongoing cost of $85,000 to maintain that cloud-based system, which allows, like we said, the online permitting, online inspection requests.
You're gonna be able to pay your water bill online.
Yeah, pay your water bill will tie in directly. You'll be able to, our staff will be able to, the building department, when they're out, everything will be right there on a tablet for them, so they're not having to fill out paperwork and then go back and scan that paperwork to upload into an outdated computer system. It's just going to streamline so much more. And that $85,000 cost is actually being offset because we're currently paying $74,000 for current financial and permitting software. That's the annual ongoing licensing cost for that now outdated software. So we're looking at the first year cost remaining the same, but ongoing, it's only going to be an additional $11,000 per year to offer much greater flexibility to Village Hall staff and to the residents.
And I feel like $11,000 will be made up in efficiencies. I mean, that's me speculating, but
I think that's a worthy speculation. So we'll have more on that coming soon. We moved into the budget after that and looking at which of the budgets were going up, going down, staying flat.
Can we back up really quick?
Sure.
So I think this is good. Yeah. You know where I'm going.
Yep.
So this was a huge learning curve for me when I got elected, is that budgets for municipal, we joke around and call it municipal math, are different than corporate budgets. So in municipal world, money that is coming in from certain revenue streams is allocated towards certain budgets. So for example, motor fuel tax, we get that from the state. It can only be used on roads. So we have these like funds, and those funds are dedicated. So I think when we go to this section that you're going to talk about budgets, you have to remember that only certain monies can be used to fund those budgets. And that was a huge wait, what to me? You know, I was like, well, we have a surplus here. Can't we just put it over here? And you cannot. So you have to use money in the right funds.
Correct. Yeah, so that pretty much sums up what the slide says. It says, the ending says all 20 of the village's funds have unique revenues that are required to be spent on the particular purpose of the fund. And one that comes to mind that's easy is the tree fund. And that one is severely underfunded right now. And it's operating in a negative, but that is something that is funded by developer impact fees.
Yes.
And it has expenses, but hasn't had the revenues coming in. Yeah. And that is one.
But we still put money into that fund because we still want trees.
Correct.
That fund is used. So for like a big example of that is when the ash borer hit and there was a ton of diseased trees and we had to cut them down and plant new trees. We're not going to just cut parkway trees down and just leave big empty spaces. We're going to replant. And so obviously we have to do that. And we take money from the corporate fund then to help that. So.
Right. So I'm not going to go through each and every department. The majority of them stayed flat. Like I'm looking at the fire department right now. It's 5.97 and they're going to 5.99. That's personnel cost that's driving that small increase. Public Works is the same. Their increase looks like $75,000 or $80,000. There's small amounts. The one that I questioned prior to the meeting was our legal counsel. We have historically budgeted $475,000 a year for legal expenses, and this covers corporate counsel. Oh my gosh, these cats!
That cat is mad.
This is my house every day. Woo. So the corporate counsel, prosecution, special counsel, and the last few years that number has been trending north of 750,000. In 1 year, at least 600,000. It's definitely gone over budget. And I asked, well, why don't we just increase that budget and plan accordingly? And what I was told is that we've had a number of expenses recently that required additional legal, whether it's TIF district,
TIF 4, which if you watched last week, we talked about.
We did. So TIF districts definitely increase, or creating a TIF district definitely increases a legal budget. There has been some development work in the downtown area with the Spring Bank and the Music Factory. There was a lot of legal that needed to go into that. And that's why those budgets grew larger than the budgeted amount. But those numbers, now that work is done, those numbers are expected to level out.
And that's, since I've been elected, has been my biggest harp is that I don't want us involved in a bunch of lawsuits.
No.
So that number going down makes my heart happy.
Correct. Me too.
Well, now let's stay out of trouble. Okay?
Let's stay out of trouble. Right. Street funding was increased this last year, or I'm sorry, for this next fiscal year.
Can we talk about why we did that really quick? I just want to go back to a point that was made during the beginning of the pandemic. I think it was April of 2020. And I was talking to the mayor and we were trying to figure out what we could do to make sure that businesses survived and how we could help them and all of the stuff. And we were trying to think of what we could do. And the EDC was making wellness calls and Steve and I were talking, the mayor and I were talking. And I said, in these calls, has there been any feedback? And the feedback was grants help, but we have so many businesses, we'd have to allocate a large sum of money to help them. What is the best way to do this? And a lot of businesses said, keep up our roads. So to keep up our roads and make sure that this was a community that had good roads, or making sure we maintained our roads, so that businesses would benefit from that. And I thought that was so interesting that businesses asked for that. Right. In the midst of chaos, they were worried and they wanted to make sure that the look of Mundelein was kept up and that our roads were maintained. So I thought that was huge. Anyways.
Yeah. And I will throw some screenshots here on the screen of what the resurfacing plan for this year looks like. So you can plan accordingly.
And there's everyone's like, well, how do you decide what roads need to be maintained, right? That's a big question. And I sit on transportation and I ask that too. And Public Works has a 5-year plan and they assess their 5-year plan regularly. So if there's roads that are in worse shape that are not oh my God, these cats are freaking out, man. They don't like us chatting.
That's crazy.
If there's roads that need to be maintained more urgently than others, then the 5-year plan can deviate, obviously, but there is a plan.
Correct.
On how they maintain. And this goes back to the two types of maintenance for roads, which we've talked about before. What is it? Resurfacing
And rebuilding.
and rebuilding. And so there's a plan for both for 2022.
And the cost is,
oh my God, insane,
astronomically different. So resurfacing, I think Gunther mentioned last night
you
that
can
it
talk
was like,
about thousands of dollars.
yeah, $100,000 can get you a lot when it comes to resurfacing, and the same to rebuild a road and take it from the concrete all the way up through layers of asphalt on top. You're talking millions of dollars for the same length of distance.
Do you remember when we were in our trustee training and they threw out how many miles of road we have in Mundelein?
I don't remember the number,
But it's big. It's like over
it is.
100 miles of road or something crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned in the past couple of years doing this job is just because the road's in Mundelein doesn't mean that Mundelein maintains it.
Yeah.
So there's state roads like 45,
County
roads like
Like,
Midlothian, Hawley is a county road.
Yes.
And even though you may see village vehicles driving on it, of course,
Right.
we're not the ones that are going to maintain that asphalt or even plow that snow.
Right.
And then you have the neighborhood streets or some of the even bigger roads, but the majority of the bigger roads are either state or county.
Which, yeah, that's always we get emails. Sorry, both of us. I just got it. My son is at home with a stuffy nose, so I was just checking my watch to make sure that my husband and him were alive. The man cold is strong at our house.
Ouch.
I mean, he's 4 and he's already started to be like, I have the sniffles, and I'm like, you have allergies, my friend. It's okay. So
That's awesome. So again, most of the funds are pretty stable. One that stood out was the train station parking. The coronavirus has definitely impacted Metra, definitely impacted
people
ridership.
work differently.
Yep. There's a lot of people working from home, working in their basements with cats and kids upstairs.
Or you could be like my husband and work flat at our kitchen table.
Right.
Yeah.
So we saw looks like 90, I'm sorry, our revenues.
Right.
Yeah, revenues were down dramatically since 2020, and it's definitely hurting that fund.
We'll see.
going
We
forward.
project that rebounding slightly. I don't think we're ever going to see that rebound fully, at least not.
I would hope so we can get Metro Weekend service.
Ooh, I mean, 2022 people go back. I mean, my husband said to go back to the office in September.
Okay.
Praise the Lord.
Okay.
Most houses are not made for somebody working from home.
No,
and
it's definitely
ours
something
definitely is not.
that we're seeing in conversations with developers is that they're trying to build spaces into these new homes, thinking that this may be the new normal. And what does that look like?
I hate that term, the new normal.
Right.
So cliche. Anyways.
So that kind of wrapped up the budget with the funds, bringing us to that $28 million number.
Go to this one. This is good news.
Oh, the water and sewer fund. Yeah. So you want to take that one?
I mean, we're not raising rates on water.
Right. So the board decided last night to keep the water rate the same, which is, sorry, I'm sure that
It's in there.
these pages are next to the microphone. So sorry.
Oh,
about
yeah, that's
that.
annoying.
That is annoying.
Gosh, you're the worst.
That's me.
But the water sewer fund, it puts us at like, what was it, $135 per month average use?
So yeah, we're right towards the bottom of our neighboring communities.
That's great. So Wakanda, I don't know what's going there. I mean, I don't want to call out another community, but holy cow, their water bills are high. What goes on there?
I don't want to call out another community,
But I just did. Sorry.
But Wakanda, and
Sorry. Good
so
Lord.
our
That's
rates
expensive.
Our rates are staying the same for the third consecutive
Yep.
year. So they're staying at 9.24 for 750 gallons of water. So that's 1 unit of water. I have yet to figure out this
I don't know,
science
this
behind
math
how
or
they got
whatever.
to it, but again, municipal math. that a unit of water on your water bill is 750 gallons, and that 750 gallons costs you $9.24. So the average water bill in Mundelein is $134, which is the same as Vernon Hills, and the lowest in the surrounding area.
Yeah. Libertyville.
Yeah,
Conda,
the average
Vernon Hills,
across
Great
Lake County is $155.
Yeah.
One thing that they did bring up is, even though we're not raising the rates, what we've noticed is our fund amount is decreasing because people are not using as much water.
Props. I mean, that's good.
Right?
Right.
Low flush toilets are great, but that doesn't support this fund, this water and sewer fund, supports all of the water and sewer infrastructure associated with it. And while we're not selling that amount of water that we once did, that infrastructure is still in place that needs to be maintained.
Right. Your fixed costs are the same.
Or growing.
And your
right. So
revenue's going down.
That's definitely something that we're going to have to keep an eye on and see where it goes, especially with new developments coming in and water usage there.
Yeah.
And if that's enough to offset it or not. And see in...
Or maybe all those COVID pools that people bought last year will offset it. I'm just
Correct.
Kidding.
Correct.
Kidding. It's not enough to offset it. We bought a pool last summer, and I had a coronary, and I was like, what is our water bill going to be? Good Lord. And it actually wasn't that bad, so it doesn't really offset it that much.
Now you can measure it in units and how many units it takes to fill it.
Well, let's see. I feel like it was like 6,000 gallons or something, so you could just do the math.
Yeah, you can do the math.
I'm done now.
Okay.
We're done talking pools.
The next portion is when we talked about the 1.9 million that we are expected to get from the federal government, from the American Rescue Plan, which is the third COVID bill, correct?
I think
Let's go with that. That sounds right. And
yeah, I think that's right. But the first two did not have funding for me. I don't think they had funding.
One of them did.
The second one did. The first one did not. The second one did, but not to this tune. The third one will. And the reason for this is that
it's offsetting public safety.
Yeah, well, it's offsetting public safety, and we obviously saw our revenues decline slightly because of COVID. People aren't staying at hotels. People aren't driving as much. People aren't spending as... I mean, all of these variables across the board lead to decrease in revenue. So to keep municipalities functioning,
correct,
the federal government is helping.
Correct. And we had a discussion, including the new trustees, the trustees
Which
elect.
I thought that was so good. You know, like that would... Props to Gunther for doing that. Like that.
Absolutely. It was one of the frustrating parts of becoming a trustee, was sitting there literally 2 weeks, knowing you won the election 2 weeks ago, and then sitting there going, okay, well...
Budget's going to be set before you're sworn in.
Yeah, my first year, I don't have any say in the budget.
Yeah.
And this was an opportunity to include them, and we did a couple points throughout the night. And this was one of them, because these are some capital expenditures that they can weigh in on today, so that staff has some time to start planning. And while we're not, pulling the trigger, if you will, to start,
because we don't have that money yet,
we don't have that money in hand.
We won't pull the trigger until we have that money. Yeah.
We can do some things behind the scenes to start that process, to move things along when that money arrives in the account.
So we're not starting at like ground zero when scrambling. So.
Correct. So we were given a list of 10 or 15 different items, anything from building a third fire station with a price tag of $10 million down to entryway improvements and lakefront park and the shore work that needs to be done there at the lower end, near $200,000 to $250,000. We elected, with staff's recommendations, to allot 1.1 million of the American Rescue Plan funds and put the other $800,000 into our reserves. And a quick note on reserves: our board policy says we have to maintain 33 to 50%, so 4 to 6 months of funding. And we were at 33%.
Yeah, we were at the bottom end.
And now we're going to 40.
Yeah.
And if this money comes from the federal government, we will be at 43%. So we've taken some steps this last fiscal year and this coming fiscal year to replenish those reserve funds, back up to that, hopefully towards the 50,000 or 50%, 50% mark. So the staff recommendations were to add money back into our vehicle fund. We lowered that amount.
Jesus. Kat's almost just like knocked down this
our little tray
that holds remote controls
and stuff. Yes,
it would have been a large crash.
Thank you, Cats. So $200,000 is going back into the road fund, or I'm sorry, the vehicle fund.
Well, hold on. Let's talk about why. So last year, we didn't talk about this, but last year we deferred all vehicle purchases. So COVID hit in March, and the bonus of our fiscal year starting in May is that we had COVID, right? Like, so we knew.
We planned for it.
Right, we planned for it because we knew it was in existence. I think this stopped recording.
Oh, it sure did. Well, we were talking about vehicles and deferring last year's cost because our fiscal year
starts in May.
It's bonus.
Right.
So we deferred our $1 million in vehicle purchase last year. This year we cut our generally $1 million a year plan for purchasing.
I think Eric said that everyone gave up a car.
Right. So we cut that by $200,000. I think Public Works lost a generator, and the fire department lost an SUV, and the police department lost a squad car replacement. And we had to push those off for another year. So this $200,000 that staff is recommending would fund those vehicle purchases, again, if that American Rescue Plan money comes in. Next is some Park Street enhancements. That was not the alleyway on Park Street.
No.
That's on the list as well. We are very, very well aware
that
the
alleyway is
alleyway between Park Street up north towards Luke's is in some dire need of repair. And that's being budgeted for this fiscal year. Again, should those monies come in. Park Street enhancements would be the work that we've proposed.
Right. Phase 2 and 3.
Phase 2 and 3, I believe. Entryway improvements. This is all you.
Why is this me?
Because it's making things pretty.
It is making things pretty. It makes me sound just so it's just pretty. No, it's more than that. So it's making sure that the underpasses that when you come in from the north, if you look on the west side of 45 as you're driving south on 45, is this right? Yeah, I'm so directionally challenged. But you're driving south on the west side, you have the seminary, and the trees are all pretty, and it looks very lush, and it's gorgeous. And then the east side needs some work. So
I believe you have that backwards.
No, I don't. Oh, I do have it backwards. Oh, sorry.
Driving south, the seminary's on the east. Loch Lomond's on the west.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Map
That's all right.
skills, not my strong point. Thank God for GPS. So when we got elected, everything is in street names and east and west. And I'm like, can you please give me landmarks? Because I don't know where that is. But anyways, so making both sides of 45 uniformly look nicer. Just because that is, so say for example, I mean, you're a realtor and you're driving people into town, what they see when they come in is their perception of the town. So making sure that those look nice. Again, this is,
and hopefully we'll be able to get some matching grants like we did for the south end.
For the south end, the American Bloom grant will match that. I'm hoping that program, I mean, I have high hopes for that program. I want to see it blown out of the water and the community get involved. And this is a finance meeting, but that program should take off.
Absolutely.
Don't talk about it. But on the other thing that was on there was Lakefront Park, which we talked about again. And I that is important to me because I want to replant some trees there. And I want to make sure that shoreline is stabilized and to the best of our ability. So when this money comes in, those projects, woo, there goes.
And that was the remote.
Look at that cat is pleased with himself. That's right.
Cats.
So yes, so Lakefront Park is huge for me, and I want to make sure that is maintained. So when this money comes in, that's what we will be spending it towards.
Correct.
Right? Cool.
Yep.
And that's it. Is that the whole end of the presentation?
That is the only thing that I failed to mention, or that we didn't hit on rather, is the 2 expiring programs at the end of this month.
Oh yeah.
So we set them to expire at the end of our fiscal year. Those are the outdoor dining program and the utility program.
Yes.
And these were both designed to help businesses that were struggling or are struggling and needed help with paying some utilities. So that was an amount of money that was set aside. And I want to say 15 or 20 businesses utilized that one.
No, I think 14 utilized the outdoor dining, and it was a big number, 30 maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
But it was a smaller amount of money.
But it was a smaller amount of money. Use the utility grant program.
Okay. And we haven't seen a lot of interest in the utility program. We are operating under the assumption that those that needed it have used it, and that program will be expiring at the end of April. And we did allocate, I think we allocated $50,000 towards the outdoor dining program to help businesses buy tables or tents or whatever for outdoor dining. And we've used about 25 or 26,000 of that, and we're allocating another 30,000 for the next fiscal year to help businesses that may need to explore that option as either they open now or into the near future.
Yeah,
and then the end of COVID,
or maybe
hopefully
maybe they saw that it went well last year and they want to make it more permanent. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think I kind of like eating outside all the time now. It's kind of nice. So in the summer, it's kind of nice. But we'll see what that goes. Oh, cat just messed them up.
Oh my gosh, these
I
cats.
feel like we should just turn the camera and we could talk and you guys could watch these cats fight because it's probably way more entertaining
It probably is.
We are. I hope no one watches this. I hope people just listen to it. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but...
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I listen to podcasts when I do other things, like cook dinner and stuff.
Yep.
So
Great for working out.
I mean, I get on the Peloton and...
I'm going to tell you, it's a little weird to sit here and think that somebody's listening to us talk while working out. Which, if you are, good for you.
I hope I'm pumping you up.
That's right. We need to get more motivational.
Yeah. I hope you are jacked. Max deadlift today, listening to our podcast.
Wow. Wow. Power lifter over here.
I mean, or what do you do? Run? Go fast.
Yeah.
I don't know. Running I'll never get.
No. Well, that's all we got this week.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week for another episode, which is probably just going to be a recap of the village board meeting.
Hopefully we get no snow tonight.
No snow would be great.
And
if you have questions, suggestions, comments, don't like something, want to see more of something, please let us know.
Oh, be gentle on the don't like something.
That's true. Be kind.
We're people.
Yeah, we're people with cats.
Or dogs.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye.